Assalamu alaikum students. This is the third part of Mesopotamian civilization. This part is about art and architecture of Mesopotamian civilization. This is the brief sketch of history of Mesopotamia. Architecture was difficult in this era because the geographic location provided few usable materials, meaning that there was a very little stone but abundant clay there. For this reason, the Mesopotamians opted to use brick and adobe in their architectural foundations. Although the use of lintels using wooden beams, vaults, and arches was more common in Egyptian art, these three elements can also be seen in Mesopotamian art and feature prominently in their architecture. The most notable difference between Egyptian art and this style of art was the little significance they placed on funerary buildings, only developing and focusing on two types of buildings, temples and palaces. Egyptians were more religious than Mesopotamians. Their architecture includes cities, houses, palaces, Ishtar Gate, the legendary Tower of Babel, temples, ancient ziggurats, tombs. First one is cities. The city was surrounded by a fortification of double walls. These had defensive tower that project well above the walls. The walls also had a large moat in front, which was also used for navigation. The length of the wall and moat is about 5.25 miles. The city had a palace located on its northern side on the outer wall. These are the images of cities of Mesopotamia. These are the images of different streets. Ishtar Gate. Ishtar Gate was very famous. From the palace originated a procession street that cuts through the city raised above the ground to the Tower of Babel. The procession street enters the city through the famous Ishtar Gate. The Ishtar Gate is built across the double walls of the city fortification. The gate had a pair of projecting towers on each wall. All the facades of gate and adjoining streets were faced with blue glazed bricks and ornamented with figures of heraldic animals, lions, bulls, and dragons. These were modeled in relief and glazed in other colors. None of the buildings of Old Babylonian has survived to the present age. The Ishtar Gate was the eighth gate to the inner city of the Babylon. It was constructed in about 575 BCE by order of king on the north side of the city. It was part of a grand walled processional way leading into the city. This is Ishtar Gate. How beautiful it was. The legendary Tower of Babel. This is recorded as one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, but exact knowledge of the nature of this garden is not known. Temples and towers were also prominent architectural elements of Babylon. The legendary Tower of Babel, located at the end of Procession Street, is mentioned in the Christian Bible. These are the images of tower. Houses. Shelter constitutes a significant basic need of human being. Homes were regarded as the basic unit where families could originate. It is indeed interesting to discuss the housing system of the people of Mesopotamia, be the family rich or poor. All of them had houses to live in Mesopotamia. We know that absolute equality did not prevail in the Mesopotamian society. There were palaces, double storied and single storied houses. The wealthy class lived in large houses with many number of rooms, sometimes with gardens. Initially, the building materials comprised of reeds, which were perishable, but subsequently, viable material began to be used, which resemble modern materials. Mud bricks, mud plaster, and wood were common with varied in shapes and sizes. You can see the style of Mesopotamian houses. Palaces. The Mesopotamian palaces deserve mention. They were highly decorated buildings which initially functioned as socio-economic institutions and later served as storehouse, workshop, and shrines. Some palaces, royal guards, and nobles of the imperial court are shown in different paintings. Elsewhere, the king is seen in conflict with animals or seated beneath a ceremonial umbrella. Some columns supporting the halls of the great halls have survived. This hall has 100 pillars. The mud brick fabric of the palace and its enclosing walls have perished completely. Only the sculptures which adorn doorways or windows and openings and the relief ornamenting its entranceway remain. These are the images of different palaces. Tombs. Architecturally speaking, their tombs are not of great interest as they were simple, hypogea with brick vaults and several chambers, which were marked from the outside by a small monument without any artistic value. Very rich funerary objects have been found inside these tombs. Corpses of ladies, musicians, servants, coachmen, and guards sacrificed in large number that reveal these people barbarous funeral customs. These are the images of tombs. Next one is ziggurats. A ziggurat is a built raised platform with four sloping sides like a chopped off pyramid. Ziggurats are made of mud bricks, the building material of choice in the Near East as stone is rare. Ziggurats were not only a visual focal point of the city, they were a symbolic one as well. They were at the heart of the theocratic political system. A theocracy is a type of government where a god is recognized as the ruler and the state officials operate on the god's behalf. So, seeing the ziggurat towering above the city, one made a visual connection to the god or goddess honored there, but also recognized that deity's political authority. Great ziggurat of Ur was very famous. Ur was a Sumerian city located near the mouth of the Euphrates River. It was constructed of mud bricks reinforced with thin layers of matting and cables of twisted reeds. The Great Ziggurat was located as part of a temple complex. Temples. The fourth staircases gave access to the second and third stages of the ziggurat and to the temple. The temple is usually accessed only by the priest, where gods are believed to come down and give instructions. The people believed that climbing the staircase of the ziggurat gives a holy experience. The chief temple was also used a last line of defense during times of war. The king was the chief priest of the temple and lived close to it. The temple sits on a three multi-tiered ziggurat mountain. Ziggurat was like a mountain. Access to the temple is through triple stairways that converge at the summit of the first platform. From this stage, one passed through a portal with dome roof to fourth staircase. These are the images of temples situated on the top of ziggurat. Next one is ceramics or pottery. Since the beginning of the Neolithic period, pottery has been the main distinguishing factor between material cultures, and through it, it has been possible to observe diverse typological transformation, which were sometimes very delicate and ingenious. Using this, the pieces, origins, and archaeological context have been identified. Normally, these types of figures were simply used as containers to transport and preserve various kinds of food and beverages. They were very useful as they developed a productive economy that trade over great distances. Pottery in Mesopotamia was, as it seems from the findings at the excavation sites, only hand built. There it also seems that a variety of methods were applied doing the same. One of these methods were pinch potting, slab building, and coil building are some of the processes potters then used. It is often said that a hand is the potter's most prized tool. The types of pottery built includes pots and bowls, urns, foods, and figures of various deities. The wheel was initially developed to help with trans, transferring the pots from one place to the other, but with the time, potters also realized their other uses. Using the wheel, potter began to make pottery which was much more uniform in its thickness and ultimately less prone to a breakage. Mesopotamian pottery designs were very simple. Potters used various tools to design or engrave on their works. Designs were made on semi wet pottery using tools like metal, shells, teeth, bone, rocks, and sharpened sticks. The pottery of Mesopotamia was not only known for its application to the practical usage but also for its design. Another tool which potters of this time started using were brushes and smoothing stones. These brushes were usually composed of animal hair and were used by potters to glaze their products. Another method which the potters used was creating a matte sheen by rubbing it thoroughly using smooth stones. Pottery was one thing which was indeed at its high in this period. These are the images of different pottery. Stamps. Stamps or seals developed flat stamps and more elaborate cylinder form seals for securing and identifying documents and signaling property ownership. Cylinder seals, usually less than 2 inches high. Mesopotamian art is unique and diverse. Cylinder seals, small stone cylinders covered with a design, were the oldest form of art in Mesopotamia. Cylinder seals were used as ownership stamps for the people. They were also used as jewelry or magical amulets. Cylinder seals were related with the cuneiform system of writing because they were used to authenticate cuneiform documents. These seals differ in sizes, designs, and shapes. It was from the 3rd millennium BC that they began to be prevalent. They were used extensively by the government officials in various occasions, such as sealing the closure of the door of a storeroom, confirmation of receipt. Cylinders were used as signatures in contracts and other documents. Every size of a cylinder seal was from 3 to 6 centimeters. The surface of the cylinder was carved in integlo with a design so that it would leave an impression of the design when rolled on clay. The seals were often engraved with mythological symbols and images. Seals are both reversely and positively carved. Both precious and semi precious stones, such as lapis lazuli, cornelian, steatite, and also materials like ivory, bone, and wood, were used to make these seals. The royal cylinder seal, depicting the sun has risen, was developed in 23-8 BC. Cylinder seals have survived because of the obvious reason that they are made of stone. These are the images of some seals. The next one is sculptures. In the absence of a hard foundation like stone, Lower Mesopotamia turned sculpture into a high quality and luxury product that was normally traded over great distances. And with this came the purchase of several products like Indian gems, African ivory, and Nordic amber. As Mesopotamian sculptures were luxurious and of a high quality, only some Mesopotamian kings could commission orders of statues. However, it is certain that Cylindrical seals were widely used as identity seals on which they carved their own reliefs. Although Mesopotamian sculpture was somewhat scarce, it had some main features such as the robustness and strength of its figures. The most commonly represented figures were humans, sometimes representing monarchs, gods, officials, but always individuals, aiming to be a substitute for a person rather than a representation of them. For this reason, the head and face appear disproportionate in relation to the rest of the body of figure. Human representations portray a total indifference to reality without any likeness, while animal representations have a greater realism and fidelity to them. These are some sculptures. You can move around the sculpture. You can see sculpture from four sides. It is freestanding. Reliefs. You can see only three sides of relief. The fourth one is fixed. Reliefs were common in platelets or narrative stelas, and some of these stela feature cuneiform texts. They were detailed and meticulous works which reflect a remarkable naturalism. In these works, a distinction can be seen between divine and human affairs. The king is depicted in scenes of war, banquet, or hunting, always appearing as an upright figure, as they wanted to emphasize his power. Although the most commonly used technique in this style of painting were mosaics and marquetry, many of these great works can be found in the tombs of Ur. In addition, glazed bricks were used for decorative purposes in many structures and were even used to make the reliefs of many figures. Mesopotamian art reflects the ideas, customs, beliefs, and way of life of their people. We know that Mesopotamian civilization comprised of the Sumerian, the Hadean, the Assyrian, and the Babylonian cultures. Mesopotamian art include both slender seals and clay plaques, and the bigger ones created for the temple and the king. Art was made from natural resources such as stone, shells, alabasters, and marbles. These are the images of reliefs. Stela of Hammurabi. Stela of Hammurabi in the introductory section of the seal's long cuneiform inscription. Hammurabi declared that with this code of law he intended to cause justice to prevail in the land and to destroy the wicked and the evil, that the strong might not oppress the weak, nor the weak the strong. Hammurabi developed about 240 codes for citizens. These are the Stela of Hammurabi. Here are some expected questions for your information. These are the links, reference links, and for your further studies, for any query, you can study more. Thanks for listening, students.